9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Matthew Janusek. How you doing today, Matthew?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you carving out the time to be here, and I really want to ask you, what is your story?
What's my story? So where do you want to start?
The
How far
very
back?
beginning, and I want to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess originally from a place called Peterborough, which is in England. It's a small village, a small town north of London, which I'm sure a lot of people would know of. Probably not Peterborough. I was born there, and normal kid in a sort of a kind of housing estate, which is what they called them, and quite a mischievous kid. If I wasn't being kept occupied, then I would sort of create my own trouble, or entertainment, should I call it. I think I'm still like that nowadays, and so yeah, I guess my kind of story starts in relation to the business when I was playing I think it was just at the end of the school holidays, just about to go back, and I was out with some friends on some roller skates, came off, damaged all my ligaments in my leg, and it's quite painful, but for me it was like, well, actually, I probably don't have to go back to school, so I would extend my holiday. So I managed to get a week's off, and during that time I used it very wisely. We had these VHS recorders. I don't know if it's probably before your time, but it was a sort of like these rectangular plastic cassettes that you used to watch videos on, and I picked up Pumping Iron and watched that. God, can't remember how many times, but I got to know the words. I watched it so many times, and I kind of got this love of bodybuilding. For some reason, I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia, and it was really, I guess that was my earliest moment that I felt as I had a passion for something, and I kind of had a sign. I was when I damaged my leg, I had these things called crutches. I don't know if you kind of put them under your arm and they help you walk. And I remember sort of one evening going past the mirror and glancing to my right and noticing a bit of a tricep coming on. I thought, that's it. That's a sign. Yeah, so that's kind of how I guess, I probably the earliest memory I've got on my business today. I suppose that's where it all started.
And then where did it go from there?
Yeah, so I sort of at school I wasn't really good at anything. Not that I wasn't good at it, but I didn't want to put myself into anything. It was I had quite a short attention span, and sitting in classes listening to people telling me what to do I found quite difficult. But one subject I was very interested in was what they called woodwork and metalwork, and I sort of started I'd started weightlifting. My parents got me these weights for as a present in our garage at home. And I thought this is a good opportunity to sort of use some of my exams and skills to deck out my home fitness center. So I built a set of squat stands and an adjustable bench. Managed to get one of my only qualifications from school when I left, and that was my first piece of fitness equipment that I really developed and produced and used in my own gym. So I kind of left school there at, I think it was about 16. Glad to get out into the real world, and just kind of leave that whole being told what to do behind me.
And then what happened after that?
And then after that, I went into a different business. I didn't really know what I was interested in doing, so went went to work for my grandfather in the dental business, which was kind of okay. I used to do it in my sort of holidays at schools, but it was just something, I didn't know where to go, so I went in there and learned a lot of skills about business and working with people and working with customers and sales, marketing, and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't something I really was really interested in doing. So in the evenings, I was what they call a bouncer or a doorman. Do you know what you know that saying? Yes, sort of security guard in a nightclub, essentially. And it was a great way to sort of get some extra income, meet girls, and which is always very interesting at that age. Get in, meet all the nice people, be able to get into best clubs for free, but also to hang out with all the other bodybuilders and who generally did their competed in a lot of these different regional events. So I sort of this bodybuilding thing and this fitness thing was always something that that interested me. And as I'd sort of got a bit older and thought I need to sort of, I got into my sort of early 20s by this stage, and I thought I need to decide where I'm going to go, because I wasn't really doing anything. I was just sort of having fun, which was great. I'd organized parties and in clubs and all that kind of thing, as well as a day job. But it was just really as a sort of a lifestyle type of career, I suppose. And then my father was at a stage in his business, the company he was working with, where he just got to a decent level, and he was looking to do something on his own. He was looking to start his own business, and I suppose, getting reasonably sensible. And he says, look, why don't we think about doing, creating a business together? If you've got any ideas, let me know, and I'll do the same. But he did say, he says, look, I really think that there's an opportunity in Poland. Why Poland? Well, his parents were Polish, and at the time it was a closed communist country. You couldn't get in and get out, and it wasn't easy to trade with the country. And he says, when the country opens, there's going to be opportunities to either sell into it or to buy out of it. So he said, that's just keep that in your mind. And so I was in the gym one evening, just sitting on the side of a bench press in between sets. And I remember kind of glancing over to the left of me where all the serious weightlifters would work out. So you'd have the bodybuilders on one side that were sort of like the poor relative, and then the Olympic weightlifters who had all the best equipment and the best platforms. And I remember looking over to them and looking at their weights, and there was these kind of bumper plates, these big rubber weightlifting plates that using CrossFit and that nowadays. And they had Poland written on the side, and kind of gave me the idea. I thought, oh, okay, I can sort of, if I can get my dad to find out where they're making these, then I can just hang out in gyms all day and sell these to gyms. That was my sort of really sophisticated business idea. So I went to my dad, convinced him that this could be a great idea. And he rang up a load of aunts and uncles and relatives, and managed to find a place to buy these weights from a factory. And we brought them into England. And so we started with one pallet of about 100 kilos or a couple of 100 pounds. We brought it into England, and I went out and sold it. And that was really how we started the business, from a spare bedroom in a house. And obviously a lot of things happened in between, but probably today, 20 years later, we're I guess one of the biggest suppliers of functional training equipment for professional gyms and personal training studios. And we're in probably about 60 or 70 countries around the world now, where we have distribution, and we have 4 offices, and well over 100 people now working for us. So that, I guess that's a sort of I've skipped a lot in the middle, but let me know which bits you wanted to dig into.
Yeah, just a few things in the middle. It seems like. So when you first started to sell it, and you got that first pallet in, and it started to work, how did that impact you? Like, did you then get absolutely focused and just laser targeted focused on that one thing, or was it something that happened more gradually? Like, how did your involvement grow as the business grew?
Yeah, so for the first probably couple of years, both my father and I were doing this alongside our normal job, because we didn't have any, the bank wouldn't invest in us because we didn't really have anything to invest in. So we didn't have any funds apart from a few £1,000s that we used to kind of buy this, and that was a big risk, because it was like, look, if this goes wrong, we've lost everything. So what we used to do, we had our day job, which we did from sort of 9 to 5, and then we'd kind of have some times where we'd skip out and answer phones and do stuff, and then we'd get on it in the evening. So it was really quite gradual. We got the pallet, I'd find some people, I would sell it, we'd buy some more. So there was not this great, as you hear these stories where all of a sudden it happens and you're a millionaire overnight. No, for us it was very slow and gradual, and really it was just, I think at the time I was just so keen, so excited about doing something that I was passionate about, and I so desperately wanted to be successful that nothing else sort of clouded my mind. It was just like, right, what do we need to do next? How do we grow this? How do we find more customers? How do we find better products? It was just it became kind of an obsession, really, until we got to a stage where I was able to leave what I was doing, and then eventually my father, who had a pretty well-paid job, and it was quite a leap of faith for him, he was able to leave what he was doing, and then there was myself, my father, my mother, who used to sort of help out, and then eventually sort of other family members joined us, mainly because it was cheap labor.
I love that, the narrative of really getting immersed in it and jumping in it, and just that's it seems like that was really all you were thinking about and focusing on. And in my opinion, it seems like a lot of people are craving that. Like they're searching for something so desperately that they can put themselves and apply themselves into. But I feel like most people are just kind of waiting for that to show up. How did you know that this was the thing? And for those who haven't found it, what advice can you share about how to find it, how to get to that and recognize what that thing is and apply yourself totally to it?
Well, the important thing to know is that there's no kind of sign that suddenly drops down in front of you and say, bingo, you found it. That doesn't really happen. And I think people kind of go around thinking that there is one of these signs around somewhere if I keep looking. And so what we did is there was parts up until that. My father he was a bit of an inventor of things. So he was always looking and trying and making things and trying to sell stuff. And, for myself, I'd tried lots of small little businesses. So as I said, we'd hosted parties, and we brought and sold ladies' clothes. And in fact, before the first venture in Poland I had a girlfriend whose father he used to sell women's clothes in market stores around London. And I went to him and said, look, I've got this idea about Poland. I think it's a good opportunity. Can you do me a deal on some ladies' dresses and jumpers, and I'll go and sell them in Poland? So I actually went out to Poland with a friend, loaded up a Jeep, and it was a stupid idea, to be honest, because it was, we were selling expensive clothes from England into a fairly poor country on a market stall. But I thought, okay, let's give it a go. And I went and knocked on doors and went to shops, and we sold these dresses. And, it seemed like it was a good idea, but it was just transporting them and then literally knocking on doors, selling dresses door to door almost. It just wasn't a sustainable business. So I think what generally people need to do is just start with something. And a friend of mine said to me once, he said, look, the important thing is to get on a horse and start going. And he says, don't be worried that if you're on the wrong horse, you can always get off it and get on another horse. But what you don't want to do is just stand there looking at the horses, trying to decide what's the right one to get on, because you're not going anywhere. You're not learning anything. You're not getting any experience. So I think that's my thing. And even now in our business, we've been going 20 years, and markets change and products change, and and people change as well. And so you're always saying, well, what's the next best opportunity? What do people want? And you just got to try things, and some will work and some will fail. And hopefully your successes will outweigh your failures. That's the goal.
Yeah. Or at least the sheer size of one success. I mean, maybe one success is, you hit one home run, and that's big enough to outweigh, the 50 failures beforehand. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And I think that's so tremendously valuable. The wisdom you just shared of just get on a horse. I mean, even if you just close your eyes and pick one at random, like at least go somewhere. At least go somewhere. And I love what you said about, because then you're learning something and you're getting experience of building skills and learning about life and about yourself through the action. One thing that I'm curious about, it seems like it would appear to me that one of the biggest reasons people don't just jump on a horse is that they're afraid, or they have some limiting belief, or there's something going on in their minds that is really holding them back from just doing it or taking action or doing it now. So in your experiences, have you had limiting beliefs that you've had to overcome, and how have you overcome them in your own life?
Yeah, I think you get it all. You get it all the time. I think if you're human, then you are going to have doubts and fears and concerns. It's just, are you letting those really hold you back from what you want? Where you want to go, and so there's been many stages in business where you're at that position. It's like, look, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about the move. One of the big things that I did a few years ago, we'd had our UK operation, and we'd expanded, opened an office and a warehouse in Poland many years ago. And we thought, okay, we've figured that out. Let's go to Central Europe because it's a much bigger market. So we went to Germany and opened an office, hired people. We had a warehouse. We were distributing and selling and marketing there. Then we went out to Thailand to look at the Asian market. And that seemed to be fairly comfortable. But one of the biggest markets in the world, the biggest fitness markets in the world is the United States. And that always seemed like a really, an untouchable place to go. There was so much competition there. There was so many great companies. It was an established market. So this little company from, a small town north of London in England, to go into America seemed ridiculous. Those were the sort of things that went through my mind. And I remember having a conversation with a friend. I went to a show, San Diego or somewhere, a big fitness show, and I spoke to a friend, and he said, "Oh, actually, your products would really do well here. You've got something a little bit different, and it's not being offered on the market." And so that conversation with me sort of gave me a little bit of confidence, even though it was still ridiculous. It was like, well, how are we even going to come here? We were doing well, but we weren't doing well enough to, chuck in millions of dollars, which is what's required to build a team and set up a business, and then also to figure things out. We're very much so. We don't have any shareholders apart from us. Sorry, external investors. It's just the family. And so it still seemed like a really big, a big sort of hurdle to get over in our terms it was. But I took on board what he said, and I'd always had a dream about bringing the business here. And I thought, look, if I'm going to do it, I need to just, I need to get people behind me, and I need to find a way of making it happen, whether it's, partnering with people, whether it's, whatever it is. If I want to do it, I've got to find a way of making a start. And so I managed to go back and convince my father and some other family members that, this could be a good opportunity. And I kind of expanded the truth a little bit, because I kind of said to them, look, there's a market here. I've met this guy. He says we should come. And so I got everybody behind me, and we did. We sort of had a joint venture on a warehouse, and we started to bring some product over, and we did put a huge amount of money in. And it was very, very difficult for a number of years, but we managed to make that happen. So I think you've just got to, you've not got to be afraid of your own dreams. And I know this is a very corny statement, but they say dream big. And I think you've got to dream big, because it's, if you don't, you'll stay in a very, very small circle. And achieving a big goal or a small goal is a very similar process, really. Probably more is at stake and more work, but the process is very, very similar. So, sometimes you've got to really just, spend some time on a regular basis, expanding your thought and saying, look, what potentially could my expanded circle look like? What do I really are prepared to go and do? And then, just start making inroads into it, small step at a time. My dad always says, you have to eat an elephant one bite at a time, but you'll get there. So I think that's it. And also staying focused, they talk about dream boards and vision boards and goals and all that kind of thing. And what that does, there's no magic to it, but what it does, it keeps you focused, because I don't know about you, but you can get this great idea, whether it's something you want to do personally or in your business, and you get a great idea, and then you get back to your normal life, and life tends to take over, and before you know it, a month's gone by, and it's like, oh yeah, that was a good idea, and what have I done about it? Nothing. So I think having goals and writing things down and putting them on boards and that, it just reminds you on a regular basis that, yeah, this is what I want to do, and am I taking any steps towards it? And you just keep taking a few steps towards something, and eventually you're gonna move to where you want to be. Long answer to a short question.
Well, I love long answers, because there's only so many times that people are going to be able to really learn from somebody as incredible as you. So please take the time to give the full answer. I'm tremendously appreciative of that. I'm fascinated by the idea of goal setting and what you're talking about here. And I also love the concept of thinking really, really big. And, lately I've been trying to think bigger and literally set goals that seem so ridiculous to me right now, that the more ridiculous they seem, the more I know they're probably really good goals. My question to you, because you've achieved a level of success that most people would like, your level of success is where most people would say, oh, that goal is not achievable for me. Most people would probably not even think that. So for somebody at your level, at this stage, how do you set the specifics, right? Like, thinking huge, trying to think as big as possible, but at the same time, I would imagine there has to be some elements of being grounded in reality, but then is that limiting the potential? Like, it seems like there may be a balance there, or maybe anything that's limiting or grounding is holding you back, because then you're capping what you can do. It's like, why would we not all set goals of, I want to be a trillionaire, but then if you say, okay, I'm going to reach $1 trillion, but then is that not limiting you to get 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 trillion? You know what I mean? So like, where's the balance? Where's the fine line? What's, in your opinion, what's the way to approach that? How do you approach that?
Well, I think it's something I've learned as I've gone along, and I was with a guy yesterday that's worth. We do a podcast, and I interview a lot of successful people like yourself, and I have these same questions to some of the people I'm speaking to. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, sold his business for 1.6 billion, and you're like, what goes on in your mind? And in a lot of cases, it's quite simple. The first thing that I've really learned is not to, when you're setting those goals, is I think it's good to have money goals, definitely, but don't use that as your sort of barometer for success, because if you do, you're not going to get what you want. And so I would sort of, certainly, use that as a measuring stick, and you don't want to be not focused on money, but think about it in terms of value. So what is it that you're looking to create in, how are you going to make a difference, impact people's lives? And as sort of very sort of airy fairy as what that sounds, in order to get, if we're talking about business and financial success, and in order to do that, you've got to be offering something that people are prepared to pay for. And that's it. It's very simple. It's as simple as it gets is, people will give you money for something that they feel they want to pay for, some kind of value, whether it's a car, whether it's clothes, whether it's a service. There's a transaction with an individual person that's going on. So when you want to think big, and I've been guilty, probably in the first 10 years of our business, I certainly didn't think as big as, at the time I thought I was thinking big, but I didn't think as big as probably what I could have done. It was quite narrow focus, and it was about, how much money can we make? And I think when you switch that to say, what's the difference I can make in a world with my idea, and then how can I get that out to as many people as possible? So you want an idea that is, if it is financial, you want something that is going to be appealing to a lot of people. That's the first thing. And you want to be able to think of, what's the mechanism of being able to do that. And so I think if when you're thinking big, it's, think in terms of, what's the product or the service that you're offering, and then what is the infrastructure or the mechanism that you can use to get that to people. So, everybody in the world, or a lot of people in the world are interested in using it. So I think that's where, nowadays in our business, if we come up with a product, we're trying to think of, okay, well, what will hit a mass market? Is it possible to get it out to that many? If we can, if it does work, can we get it out to that many people? And how would we do it? And I think that's probably where you don't want to limit yourself. So I'm trying to think of an example that can kind of bring this home to people. So, tell me a product, and I'll see if I can apply it to a product. Give me something to work with. First thing comes into your head.
A podcast.
A podcast. Okay. All right. That's an interesting one. So yeah. Okay. So, podcasts, it's a very competitive market. Loads of people doing podcasts at the moment. I've got one, you've got one. So, one of the things with the podcast is, how do you think big with a podcast? Well, you could say, look, I want to have 1 million downloads a week. Okay. Well, that's great. That's a nice, goal to set. But let's take that a level down and use what I was talking about earlier. What is the let's break this down to one-on-one. What is something that you could do to a person through that podcast that's not happening at the moment? And then, how big is that market? So it could be something like, teenage guys are interested in, computer games or something. So, okay. So what is it that you can deliver to those people in your town that are in, what real value, not necessarily just sharing information. How could you build it? How could you provide information? How could you provide some kind of ongoing support to children? Whatever it is, I'm making stuff up. And then, is there people like you've got in your town around the whole world that speak different languages that would be interested in it? And so I suppose, podcasts, it's, they're very much in one language. It's very much a sort of an audio thing, and they're all very similar. How can you, I suppose, change the game and impact so many more people with that? I don't know whether that's a great example, but I think that's what it's like when thinking big. You could do a podcast and most people want to speak to, males of a certain age in the English language, and they're going to tell them certain information. But what's next? Where could podcasts be next? Could you take podcasts where you're listening to it, and then halfway through it, you've got the ability to say, well, I'm a 30-year-old guy, and at a certain junction, I want to find information about 30-year-old guys and fitness. But another guy or girl could be on it, and they're like, well, I'm 18 and I'm interested. So there could be the opportunity to then break away down another channel. You know what I mean? And it's like, right, I've now got some information for 30-year-old guys. I've now got some information for 18-year-old girls. And you're starting to kind of tell it. a few examples, but just doing things that have not done before, but are really going to reach a lot more people, and things that probably don't even exist at the moment, but maybe there's technologies in other industries that are already doing it.
Well, for the podcast, because now I'm thinking about all kinds of stuff. One thing that I think could be really, really cool, and I think it actually is coming soon. Soon being a relative term, is with the rise of VR, virtual reality. I could definitely see a podcasting experience where people have on their little headsets and it's like a full immersion, right? Where like maybe they're in some some cool room, or maybe like sitting in a waterfall, just something cool where or whatever you're talking about, they have like this play by play that's being shown to them. So we were talking about that first pallet of a couple 100 pounds, and then it could be like I could just see like a map coming, with a little arrow pointing, as the thing's being delivered, and then the distribution. So just some cool stuff like that. That's kind of what comes to mind when you say that, or actually like a multilingual podcast where it's like a real-time translation or something cool like that. Yeah, that could be awesome.
Yeah, and maybe like you've got a live one, and I suppose you're not doing a traditional podcast. You're more of a vidcast. You've got an audio, you've got a video going on, so you're already, I suppose, pushing things beyond a traditional podcast, which is predominantly audio. So where can you go? And I think that's the thing. A lot of times you can be very stuck into what currently exists, and then what I see a lot, and we've been guilty of it, is you're competing with people playing the same rules as everybody else. And it's tough, particularly if someone's already built a brand and they're already quite successful. What you're trying to do really is to take people that this person's probably doing a great job at selling already. So it's in podcast world, you going after people like a Tim Ferriss or someone, he's been doing it for long, he's nailed it down, he's built a brand. So there's no point in my mind probably trying to do that. What it is okay, how can you change the rules for podcasting? Be one of the first people, successfully impact a lot more people, raise the experience, whatever. But I think the important thing to say about this conversation you and I have just had is none of that has been about the million downloads a month, which is one of the things that everybody kind of gets stuck on. How many likes, how many downloads, whatever. That's great, and it's important to be able to track and measure your success, particularly in business. But what you've got to focus on and spend the time thinking, which is what we've done, is the details of the value that you're going to offer. Your idea about this immersive experience, great. What amazing value if you could pull that off to people that would want to just experience it. It's not about being a trillionaire or having a trillion downloads. I think that's the important distinction to remember.
Although having a trillion downloads would be pretty sweet, but I see what you're saying.
As long as it's not the goal itself, because you're through that. That's the end. That's the result of the work and the ideas that you're going to put in. If you're too focused on the trillion downloads, you're not going to be focused on what it takes to provide someone, a trillion people to be bothered to listen to your podcast. And I think, hopefully people can take this away. So many people, certainly I talk to, and in my early days, it was about the trillion downloads. That was on my goals board. It was a number, it was this, and I was going after that, and I was getting frustrated that I kept hitting a wall. And so I think if you change that, and sometimes it's a bit counterintuitive, but if you change that approach, the trillion will come. And I speak to so many people that have been very successful, and it's like, no, but that's not what I want. And it's like, yeah, that is what you need to be focused on first, and enjoy the process. Be obsessive, be passionate, and really want to make a difference to people, and you'll get it anyway. But if you're not interested and passionate, and it's not fun, then it's going to be a very tough journey, and that's probably why a lot of people don't stick it out.
Well, I think the value of the wisdom that you just shared is tremendous. And I would highly encourage everybody who's watching and listening to actually go back and listen to that a couple times, because Matthew just gave you some gems, some serious gems that it may take a couple times for that to really sink in. I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it a couple times. So let's talk about right now, where you are now. What are you looking at as the future? What questions do you still have unanswered?
Well, I suppose I'm the kind of person where I'm always looking for the next thing, looking where we can go. And as you get older, I suppose you evolve and you get a little bit more rounded and balanced. So one of the things that's very important for me, which I hadn't particularly done a great job, is getting that balance between or getting that more time. I've got 2 young children, so getting some more time to spend with them and be an important part of their life and their development as they grow up. So that's key. And also the same goes for my wife as well. But also, in parallel, my wife, I've got my family's very involved in the business, and so if we go to trade shows and meetings, I'll take my children with me in a lot of cases because they love fitness, and they're almost sort of, when I go around, people expect to see them. So I want them to be part of my life and to create, I suppose, not just a business and, not have a business and a personal life. I'd like to create a lifestyle where everything, works together. And so I'm very lucky to be involved in a business like this fitness industry, because it's about, a fit mind. It's about a fit body. It's it folds over into business and, talking to people that want to achieve things and set goals and really optimize everything in their life that they can. So for me, it's about sort of bringing those things together, sharing with people great ideas and innovations from sort of living a great life, being able to sort of have a huge amount of energy. So whether that's in products we sell or information that we give, what's more important in life than having a high level of energy? And you've probably heard this, and people say, oh, you need to have energy. But unless you sort of have a sense of what high energy is and being able to live in that high energy state, I think it's very easy not to really appreciate what that can do. If your energy is down and you're tired, that's going to affect the success of your business. It's going to affect the success of your relationships. It's going to affect your quality of your life. And to be able to have a high amount of energy and to feel good, what can't you do in life? It makes you feel sexy. It makes you feel excited. It makes you feel passionate. It makes you want to do things that you normally couldn't be bothered to do because you're like, oh, okay, I can't be bothered to get up. But when you've got that energy in your body, it's like, well, yeah, I'll get up. Let's go and do that. You just want to do stuff. And so I think if we're in the business of helping people, whether it's getting their mindset or training their body or whatever, to be able to have that energy, it transforms the quality of their life. And, just even little things, you think about it yourself. If you've had a few late nights or you're not feeling very well, think about those interactions with other human beings and think about your motivation to get up and do stuff. It's totally compromised. And then think about that time where you've probably had a load of sleep, you feel on top of the world, maybe you're on holiday or whatever, and your level of natural enthusiasm about everything and life and how the world looks is totally different. So I think one of the things that we're trying to work out, and my sort of passion is to see how I can help others and myself just improve that level of energy. I think that's a wonderful thing that a lot of people take for granted and don't really realize the benefit that it can have on all areas of their life.
I love that, because to me, what just immediately popped into my head was, if you're trying to do something half-assed, I mean, you're doing a disservice to yourself and everybody around you. And if you're not bringing the full force of your being to what you're doing, then you're not allowing yourself to fully explore the limits of what you can do. And I truly, truly believe that every single one of us, like every individual, has something really, really special that we can offer the world. And if we don't bring that energy, we may not find it. And I mean, we never know. Like, you never know who's going to be the next person to solve some humongous world problem that could benefit all of us as people. And I really think one of the core foundational pieces of that is that energy. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. And you've got to, and those two things we've spoken about, and you've picked them out in the right order, is, you've got to have a goal, and that's important. But even when you're setting goals, and this is something I got from Tony Robbins years ago, and I think there's a number of people that said it, even when you're setting goals, the state that you're in when you're setting goals has got to be in the right state. Because if you're sort of sitting down and thinking, I've had a shit day and I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to work on some goals, then the sort of the level of creativity and problem solving in your mind is again going to be compromised. One of the best thing to do, and I'd recommend people go ahead and give this a try and let us know what you think, is if you're thinking about, maybe I need to set some new goals and I need to get a new vision, if this podcast inspires you to do that, then what I would suggest is go out for a run. And even if you're not a great runner, just give it a bloody go, and have a couple of shots of espresso and go out for a long walk, and just get your body flowing. Put some music on that just makes you feel good. Those sort of songs where when you hear it you feel brilliant. Put the music on, go out for a walk or a run, ideally for half an hour or so, and then start thinking about your different goals. And the way when you come back and you sort of calm down, you think, well, who wrote that? Is that me? But when you've done that, the important thing is to remember that, yes, it was you. You were just in a very different state at that time. And then what you've got to do is you've got to, grab hold of those ideas and say, I'm going to move it forward. Because a lot of times, I'll go out for a run, I work out most days, and at the weekends I'll go out and I come up with these crazy ideas, and when I'm running, I'm excited. I'm thinking, yeah, this is brilliant. And I'll put them into my phone. And when I get back, I'm a little bit intimidated by them. I'm a little bit scared. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not going to pick up the phone and say that to that person, or maybe I'm not going to share that idea because it's a bit stupid. It's a bit crazy. I'm a little bit afraid of it. But the important thing is you just go and you say, no, I am going to pick up the phone and tell that person, and I am going to send that email, and I'm going to make a step towards those ideas. Because I think most of the time, 80%, we're living in this sort of little bit of a stress state. We're questioning ourselves. We're not in that right environment. And so, in some cases, coming back to your original point, we're a little bit scared of doing these things. But I think when you go out there, you clear your head, you're positive, you're feeling good, you can come up with some really good ideas. And then the challenge is the two sides of your brain, the positive one and the not positive, is convincing them, I am going to carry out on those great ideas that I've thought about. And if you can do that, I think you'll be do that for 30 days. I think you'll be in a very different position.
I think that's brilliant. That would be an epic 30-day challenge of hit a run or bike or swim or whatever. Just like get pumped up for at least 30 minutes, write down those ideas. And then for those 30 days, you have to do them. No matter how crazy. Because here's something that I think about all the time. And I have crazy, awesome ideas. At least I think they're awesome all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to talk to this person and connect them with this person and make that happen. And so many people that because I like to talk about things with people, clearly, because I have a podcast. But sometimes when I talk to people about that, they're like, oh no, that's not a good thing to talk to them about. That's not a good thing to bring to them. And I'm like, wait a second. Because sometimes I catch myself thinking that. I'm like, wait a second. You aren't them. You don't actually know what they're going to say. I would rather talk to that person and let them make the decision for themselves, because you never know how your idea is going to spark something else in somebody else's mind. I mean, the worst thing they can say is no. And if you took the time to think about like this idea and to share it with them, I actually think that adds to the social currency. I don't think it takes it away, because you're showing them, hey, I was thinking about you. I'm thinking about, I want to do something with you. Like, to me, that's a positive. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, is there a limit to who you'll reach out to about what?
No, like that, I guess, listening, having people, I hate, with passion, people that tell me, you can't do that. And I just, I'll do anything to avoid even asking people's opinion like that, because it's difficult enough in your own mind to convince yourself to go out and do it. You've got your own wrestling match to say, I'm a bit worried about even saying that to somebody. So you don't need some moron that's talking you down even more, that's beating you around the face with their words. What you want to do is to kind of develop the confidence to be able to go out and speak to someone, and that's going to take some work. But do it in a way where it's like, look, I've got this idea, and get people's thoughts, because even if I like to think I know quite a lot about the business and the industry I'm in, but when you talk to someone, it's a little bit like a bit of a sparring match. You kind of you throw a punch, they throw a punch, and together you sort of you end up with something a little bit better than what you had originally, because you've thrashed things out, and you've sort of got some counter moves and some objections which you don't always get in your own mind. So the more times you can do that, the better rounded that you're going to have when eventually you're ready to go with it. And some people say, well, don't tell anybody your idea, just wait. But I'm the sort of person where I like to experiment with people. I like to say, what do you think about, and you've got to choose the right person, obviously. You need people that are going to say, well, that's a good idea, but what about if you did this? There's a couple of different types of people. There's those people who say, like you said, well, that's not going to work. They'll give you 10 reasons why you can't do it. You want people that will say, well, yeah, that's good, but what about if you did this? Or what about if you did that? And they add to the idea. Do you get the difference?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And choose, and sometimes it's not always going to someone that's, a gazillionaire to ask them the question. Sometimes it could just be someone, a normal person on the street that just looks at things in a very unique way. But I try and find positive people that can get excited and see how that could make a difference. It's like, well, what's my intent? Well, my intent is I want to educate people about this, or I want to improve people's lives about that. And I've got this idea about how to do it. What do you think? And then it's like, well, yeah, I think that's great, but I think if you did this, you could impact even more people. Or if you did that, you'd tap into these people, or young people would like it. That's the way I like to think of things.
That's awesome. Well, Matthew, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I want to be very respectful of your time, and I'm very grateful for the time that you have carved out to be on the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. It's been fun. It's been an interesting conversation. And yeah, let me know if you get anyone going for these challenges. I'd love to hear how they get on. Be very, very curious.
Absolutely. So I have one more question for you. Then we'll wrap it on up. I'm 24, and the reason I say that is because I want to ask specifically from my perspective. But what question should I be asking you, specifically you, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
What question should you ask me that you wouldn't think to ask? Well, that's like a tongue twister question, isn't it? I think I'll probably look at it. I'll rephrase it in a way that I can get my head around. I think my thinking back at my the 24-year-old version of myself, what would I tell him? I can sort of figure that out. And I think, and for me, and this may be personal, the first thing is that, it's going to be okay. That's the first and most important thing, because you spend so much of your time worrying about shit, like what happens if this goes on, and what happens if that goes on, and the reality is you can't do anything about it. And you're clearly someone who's bothered about, you've taken a lot of effort to get and even build this podcast. A lot of people wouldn't do that. So you've got the ability to sort things out, to take the initiative and to make a change. So whatever life throws at you, and it will throw things at you, then, you know, you're going to move around it and deal with it and get it out your way. And you know, I think when I was younger, I spent probably too much time worrying about things that hadn't happened instead of putting that energy into, you know, that negative energy. You know, you've only got so much of that stuff in your head that you can use and focus on. And I think if I'd have probably spent more of that energy on sort of where I wanted to go and just coming up with solutions and just putting that aside, then I think I'd have just had more fun and been sort of a lot more relaxed and probably, you know, delivered a lot better. And, you know, to some extent, even today, sometimes, you know, that happens. You can only focus really on one thing at a time, and you just got to make sure that you shut out those things that are not really serving you, and you just focus on the stuff that's serving you, and just have confidence in yourself that whatever life throws at you, you'll sort it out. And my guess is, even at 24 years old, everything that's come in front of you, you've moved around it and moved on, which is why you're where you are today.
Well, Matthew, again, thank you so much. And to everybody who's watching and listening, whenever you may be watching and listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. Your time is very valuable too. So I'm very grateful that y'all would choose to share some of it with us today, that you stuck with us all the way till the end here. And I'm excited for you because of all the gems you picked up, because Matthew was dropping some red hot fire. So thank y'all for being a part of this. I love y'all so much. Y'all are the reason that I do this. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you. And I will see y'all on the next episode. Take care now.
Thank you.